Well, round 12 of the AFL season gave us some weird and wonderful results. Let's go through them all in today's episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast Round 12 review. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 36 for season 2025. It's our round 12 review episode. We're going to look at all 7 matches from the weekend. We'll look at all the winners, all the best players, all the important stuff that you need to know from the weekend. Whether you watch the games or not, we've got all the information you need from the weekend's football. At the end, we'll go through our tips, how we went. We'll also have a look at the running Brownlow medal leaderboard as adjudicated by our prediction system, and also our MVP award system leaderboard. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, whether you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment, like the video, hit the subscribe button or the follow button. Leave the podcast a rating, all of that stuff. It all means a lot. It all helps the channel a lot. So, thanks. Let's jump into football action from the weekend, I guess. While we're doing that, don't forget also to check out the YouTube channel. There's plenty of videos going live every day. Well, not every day, but a couple times a week at least, especially at the moment, because there are mid-season reviews going out for each team as they get to the bye. So go check them out. So far there's 4 on the channel. There's the Bulldogs, Carlton, North Melbourne, and Port Adelaide, the 4 teams that had the bye this weekend. They're already out on the channel. There's 2 more going live this week, Fremantle and St Kilda. So check them out as well. Plenty of content over on the YouTube, so go check that out. Let's jump into the football action from the weekend. Thursday night footy started with Brisbane Essendon at the Gabba. It feels like ages ago already, this match. I don't know why, but it does feel like it was forever ago. And what to say about this game? It ended up being a lot closer than probably most people thought it would be. It was a good game. Brisbane kicked away a little bit early. Looked like they were fully in control in that first quarter. 6-1. And really looked good. And then after that, the Bombers got themselves back into it, even hitting the front by a point in the last quarter. Some poor kicking in the second quarter from Brisbane opened the door up. I mean, they didn't kick terribly throughout the game, but the Bombers were very accurate in front of goal, which certainly helped their chances. The Lions managed the last 3 goals of the match, though, just to kind of seal the deal, I guess. There was some interesting things to talk about from this game, though. Firstly, Hugh McCluggage. How good is he going at the moment? He is an absolute gun. He's having his best season of his career so far, I think. He has been Brisbane's best midfielder so far this year. Overall, across the year, in a very strong midfield, so that's a really good effort. He had 41 touches. Yeah, not much else to say about him. He was an absolute gun. He is an absolute gun. Nick Martin, probably Essendon's best. As you can see, I gave him 5 votes in the MVP. He also had plenty of it, 29 touches, kicked a couple goals early as well. Also worth noting, Nate Caddy kicked a ripping goal over his head, so go check that one out. I'm not sure if it will be goal of the week or not, but it certainly was a good goal. Other than that, I don't know if there's too much else in terms of players to go through. Let me just move through some team stats for this one. Overall, Brisbane had the dominating possession, dominated the ground, territory battle, I guess you could say. 40 extra touches, 19 extra inside 50s. Clearances went the Bombers' way. They've actually been pretty good in the clearance game, certainly of late, the last few weeks. I feel like they're really doing good in the stoppage clearance game. Uncontested footy was well and truly the side of Brisbane in this game, and they looked after the ball a lot better as well. Just 56 turnovers, which is below their average. Meanwhile, Bombers had 64, which is basically their average, so not good or bad. They couldn't control the ball, though, the Bombers, in all truth be told, because Brisbane had 136 marks, which is well above their average. Meanwhile, Bombers only managed 77, so well below theirs. Just tells you that the uncontested game, the uncontested mark game, was certainly controlled by Brisbane, which you kind of expect. They're the more experienced, more controlled team over a long period. Interestingly, they have kind of gone back to their normal game, Brisbane, where they get lots of inside 50s and don't convert too many into goals. 62 inside 50s for 13 goals. Not the greatest strike rate of all time. Anything else worth noting from this one? As we said, I mean, there's plenty of shots from Brisbane. They ended up with 27 shots to Essendon's 20. Obviously, that puts them as the expected score winner, as you'd imagine. Like, that's basically how things work. Bombers scored really well from stoppage. As we said, they did dominate those stoppages, and they turned it into scores. 8 goals, 149 from stoppage to Brisbane's 2-4-16. So, really good performance from the Bombers from clearances, and managed turning those clearances into scores. So, really impressive there. On the flip side, though, it was the turnover game that probably cost them, because Brisbane dominated that. As we said, they didn't turn it over that much, and they turned it over reasonably well, intercepted pretty well, did Brisbane, and they turned it into a lot of scores. 11 goals, 73, whereas Essendon only managed 2 goals, 17. So that's the difference right there. Transition-wise, it was all forward half from Brisbane as well. They dominated that forward half. Scoring source. Centre bounce, Bombers kicked 3 goals from the centre bounce, so really impressive from that. And they also got 1 goal from a kick in as well. So 4 goals straight from those 2 areas is really quite impressive. Brisbane moved the ball better throughout the day, and that's basically where we end up. MVP-wise, if you're not watching the video, we'll go through these votes. For Brisbane, also, if you're new here, we do top 5 for each team get votes each week. The winning team gets 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Obviously, the best gets 10, down to 2. And the losing team gets half of that. So 5 for the best, 4, 3, 2, and 1 for the 5th best. So the winning team, Brisbane here, 10 votes to Hugh McCluggage, I think. Very few people would say that anyone else was best on ground. Will Ashcroft got 8, Noah Answorth 6, Jasper Fletcher 4, and Jared Berry 2. And for the losing team, Essendon, 5 for Nick Martin, 4 for Jai Caldwell, 3 for Peter Wright, 2 for Mason Redman, and 1 for Zach Merritt. Brownlow votes, we went Hugh McCluggage 3, Nick Martin 2, Jai Caldwell 1. Really good performance from the Bombers. Don't get the win, obviously, but, I mean, that's football, isn't it? Like, you can't win them all. They put up a good fight. They're still sitting in a pretty solid spot for the season, in all honesty, better than most people expected. They got a big game this Sunday night. It's the Blues at the MCG, Sunday night football. Should be a cracking game. Carlton are going in favourites at the moment. We'll be obviously previewing that game in the next episode of the podcast, which will be out on Thursday, so check that one out. But that should be an interesting game, and one that I think the Bombers have a really good shot in. Meanwhile, Brisbane, they're heading over to Adelaide for Friday night football at the Adelaide Oval. That will be a tough matchup. It's 3rd versus 2nd on the ladder. It should be a cracker. There's some good games of football coming up this weekend. So make sure you check out the podcast that goes on Thursday, because we'll be previewing all of these games, and there are some rippers. There's no doubt about it. Some absolute rippers. So yeah, Adelaide on Friday night, big game, important game, because Brisbane probably not in their best form over the last 3 or 4 weeks. They really need a good win over a tough opposition to get their season just fully going. They're only half a game off top, obviously, but their form has not been sensational. Moving on to game number 2 of the weekend. It was Friday night football. It was Collingwood Hawthorn at the MCG. And Collingwood absolutely dismantled Hawthorn here. 16-11-107. Hawthorn 8-8-56. Bit of an arm wrestle for the first quarter and a half or so. Late in that second quarter, Collingwood kicked away with the last 3 goals of the quarter, give themselves a little handy break going into half-time, and then straight after half-time they kicked away again, kicking the first 3 of the third quarter, end up winning it by 51 points. A bit of a stalemate in that last quarter. Collingwood kicked 2 goals, 2 to 0-3 for Hawthorn, but the damage was well and truly done. Biggest stat to come out of this, I know it was talked about a lot in the commentary, but it was very obvious in the game, the tackle count. It ended up something ridiculous. What was it? 82 to 38. 82 tackles, pretty solid number for Collingwood. 38 is absolutely dismal from Hawthorn. The amount of players, I think there was 4 or 5 players that didn't lay a tackle for Hawthorn throughout the day. It's just not good, is it? That's 20 below their average, whereas Collingwood were 17 above their average. It is Collingwood's probably one would just about tackle game, pressure game. It's what they go to a lot, especially when they're struggling. But yeah, Hawthorn just didn't have it here at all. There's lots of reasons why Hawthorn had a bad day, or have had a few bad days in a row. But that's probably the number one factor right there. You look at the team ratings from the game, according to my stats, 48 basically for Collingwood is pretty solid. It's not outstanding. It's not the greatest rating even of this weekend, but it's pretty solid. But 38.76 is really low from Hawthorn. One of their lowest scores over the last 18 months, just about. So not a great performance from Hawthorn here. Stat-wise, looked pretty good for Hawthorn for most of the day. Collingwood kind of turned the stats late in this game to be really one-sided, but in the end, Collingwood had slightly more disposals, but Hawthorn did lead that count most of the day. Inside 50s, Hawthorn dominated that most of the day, ended up only +1, but both teams well below their average in that regard. Clearance-wise, Hawthorn dominated that, +10, +5 centre clearances, +5 stoppage clearances, so they certainly had their chances, Hawthorn. They even won contested football in this game, but as I said, that tackle numbers, the pressure numbers were massively Collingwood-sided, and also the turnover numbers here. Collingwood had just 48, which is more than 10 less than their average. Meanwhile, Hawthorn had 62, which is right on their average, but that low number by Collingwood just was huge in this game. They looked after the football, they didn't give it up, and when they did, they didn't concede that many points from it either. We'll get to that shortly, but I think that's been the biggest factor over the last 2 weeks, especially for Collingwood, is how little they're turning it over. They're really looking after the football, which is crazy because they don't always go slow. They don't always take risk-free football. They do, at times, go absolutely helter-skelter through the middle that looks absolutely chaotic and like no chance of working out. But they just don't turn it over. They look after the football, and that is a huge factor for them right now. We'll jump into some of the other stats from the game. Obviously, Collingwood had a lot more shots, 28 to 19, so +9 shots. Expected score kind of went in Collingwood's favour here. The actual score, so expected score was a margin of about 36, which is 6 goals, so still a pretty healthy lead there for Collingwood. As we said, that turnover game though, Collingwood scored 11-5, 71. Hawthorn managed just 4-5, 29. That's your difference right there. The turnover numbers turned into scoring. That's all on the back of Collingwood pressure. There's no doubt about it. Stoppage-wise, we said Hawthorn dominated stoppages, +10. They didn't outscore Collingwood though. Collingwood got 35.55. Hawthorn just got 4 goals too from all their stoppage clearance domination. So make of that what you will. But Hawthorn just had so many factors in this game where they just didn't convert. Not just their scoring, but like their plans. Like if that was their plans, they just weren't hitting them at all. Defensive half, Collingwood scored 47 to 22, and then forward half 47 to 21. So it was just all around the ground scoring from Collingwood, and yeah, in the end, quite a comfortable victory, 51 points. Another potential top 8 team that they've taken out quite comfortably. They did the similar thing to Brisbane. Their season has really got going. There's no doubt about it. We look at the MVP votes for this game for Collingwood, the winning team. Still Sidebottom gets the 10. Jamie Elliott's form. Let's have a minute for him because he has been outstanding. His last 6 weeks, he's kicked at least a goal in all 6 of those games. He's had 3 bags of 5 and a bag of 6 in there as well. He's absolutely outstanding. He's, 5 goals off the lead in the Coleman. He's in career best form. And he's 32 years old or something. Still Sidebottom's not far off career best form as well. So it's crazy what Collingwood are doing. But so 10 votes, still Sidebottom, 8 for Jamie Elliott. Nick Dacos gets the 6. Brody Mychek kicked 4 goals. He gets 4 votes. Jack Crisp having a really good season with 2. Over the other side, Hawthorn. Jack Ginnivan was clearly Hawthorn's best player. He gets 5. It's crazy that his 2 best disposal games of his career are both against Collingwood, his old team. He gets 5. Connor Nash 4. Lloyd Meek gets 3. Jack Gunston 2. Carl Amon gets 1. Brownlow wise, it's going all Collingwood. Still Sidebottom gets the 3. Nick Dacos 2. Jamie Elliott 1. I think they're the 3 best players on the ground. You'd be hard fast to go against those 3, I think, for the Brownlow votes. Which order it goes in could be any option. Dacos did have 32 touches and a goal. Sidebottom had 27 touches, 2 goals. Jamie Elliott had his 12 touches for 5 goals. So any one of those 3 could get the 3, in my opinion. I look forward to the next week. Collingwood, they have the traditional King's birthday game coming up on Monday. The Big Freeze. Melbourne coming off a bad loss. Collingwood will be pretty short favourites. I think it's going to be wet. It's going to be cold. It will be interesting to see how that plays out. Collingwood did get beat Melbourne both times last year quite comfortably. So maybe that's a sign. Maybe it's not. We'll see. Meanwhile, Hawthorn, they have Bulldogs Marvel Stadium Thursday night. That's a tough game. At the MCG, you'd back Hawthorn to be quite a good chance in that one, but Marvel Stadium, Bulldogs off the bye. It shall be interesting to see how that one plays out, I suppose. Yeah, that's that game. We'll move on to Saturday football. Gold Coast, Fremantle, up on the Gold Coast, and the Dockers get it done. What is going on with the Dockers season? That's crazy. We'll go in depth on them this week in the bonus video on the YouTube channel, the mid-season review. But they would be absolutely stoked with this one. 11-9-75 to 9-10-64. 11-point win in the wet up on the Gold Coast. Really important win for them heading into the bye. There's no doubt about it in my eyes how important this game was for them. It was a tight tussle, but they pretty much led most of the way. They were 20 points up at quarter time. Still up by a goal at half time. There were a couple times the Gold Coast hit the front in the third quarter, but in the end, Fremantle just had the scoreboard pressure on them most of the day and ended up holding on quite well. Having a look at some of the stats of this one, Gold Coast had plenty of the football, as they tend to do. They are a reasonably high disposal team. But Fremantle just dominated the territory. +9 inside 50s here. Really solid numbers there. Clearance game, Gold Coast did really well. And this is a thing, I think, with Fremantle, certainly over the last few weeks. They don't have to dominate clearances anymore to win games of football. Last year, they were one of the best clearance teams in the competition, whereas this year, they're not. And it hasn't hurt them. They're playing good football. They lose clearances here by 7. They win the game by 11 points. So they would be really happy with that, I think. Turnovers, obviously it was a wet game, so both teams had high turnovers. Pretty similar numbers there. High tackle game, wet weather football, basically. Both teams well over their average in terms of tackles as well. A look at some other important stats in this one. Ends up pretty close in shot tally. Fremantle had 21, Gold Coast 22. Expected score actually has Gold Coast winning by about a kick. So Gold Coast perhaps wasted more opportunities than Fremantle in this one. But Fremantle just controlled the ground, I think, and that's probably the biggest difference here. Gold Coast did score well from stoppage. As we said, they did win the stoppages over Fremantle and went plus 14. But the turnover game, Fremantle 41, Gold Coast got just 16 points, 2 goals for from turnovers in this match. When you look, I know it's wet weather football, so it's hard to turn turnovers into scores, but you also have a lot of turnovers in the game. So to turn whatever it was, 70-something intercepts into just 2 goals for is not a great return on that for Gold Coast. 6 goals, 541 for Fremantle's a decent enough effort. Obviously, wet weather football, it's hard to transition from defensive half to forward half and score. Fremantle got just 2 points from the defensive half in this game. Gold Coast 2 goals, 4-16, but the forward half is where Fremantle dominated it. 10-6-66. Gold Coast just 6-4-40. That's the difference, really. What else do we need to talk about in this game? We'll go through MVP votes. For the winning team, Fremantle, Jordan Clark, 10. Andrew Brayshaw, he's going great, 8. Luke Jackson, not always playing as a ruckman. Sometimes he plays as a ruck rover. He's a very versatile bloke. He played really well, 6 votes. Sam Switovski maybe played his best game of the year, close to. He gets 4. Caleb Sarong gets 2. Over the other side, Gold Coast, Noah Anderson, he is having an outstanding season. He gets 5. Daniel Rioli played one of his best games as a Sun. He gets 4. Matt Rao gets 3. Mac Andrews 2. And Sam Flanders was very quiet in the first half, but managed 3 goals in the second half, gets 1 vote. Brownlow could go any way, in all honesty. I've gone Bolton 3. I know he wasn't even in the MVP votes, but he was very important. He ended up with, I think, 3 goals, 2 from 20 touches, so he was really good. Noah Anderson, his season is outstanding. He had 39 touches, so he could get the 3 as well. Andrew Brayshaw, I've given the 1 vote for. He had 30 touches and a goal, so he was very important. Team ratings, 44.2 for Gold Coast, slightly below what they average. Fremantle, 45.2 is a really good away score from them. So 2 away wins in a row for them in the last 3 weeks. 1 to NG Stadium against GWS, and now this one against Gold Coast is a really, really good turnaround for them. They were always hoped to be good this year, but they had a bit of a up and down start to the year. But maybe this little run into the break is what they needed. A look ahead for both teams. Obviously, Fremantle, they have the bye this week, so they will be resting up. As I said, their mid-season review video will be going live on the YouTube channel in the next couple of days, so go check that one out. St Kilda, not St Kilda, way away. Gold Coast, they have a trip down to Victoria this weekend. They're playing Geelong at GMHBA Stadium. That is a tough one. They won't want to lose it 2 in a row here, so it's an important one. It's a really tough one, though. Certainly not an easy game, but they do have the bye coming up after that. So if they can put in a good performance this weekend, head into the bye and regroup, I wouldn't be writing them off either way, whether they win or lose this weekend. But they certainly would love to get a big scalp in Geelong this weekend. That's it for that game. We move on to the next one, and what was this game of football? Oh my goodness. If you haven't watched this might be one to watch. It's not the most high quality game of all time, but what was this game of football? GWS end up winning at 12-8-80 to Richmond 10-17. Yes, you heard me right, 10-17, 77. The Tigers played well. They led it almost all the way. They were 28 points up at quarter time. They were 26 points up at half time. They were 28 points up at 3/4 time, and then Richmond came home with a rush. and managed to win it. They scored just 1 point in the last quarter, Richmond. They'll be kicking themselves for their poor kicking at goal, though. There's no doubt about it. Meanwhile, GWS, they didn't look the winner at any point of this game, but they do end up stealing it in the final quarter. Obviously, the big news out of this one is Callan Ward, who has been confirmed to have done his ACL. So his season's done. He's having the surgery. Will he play again? I guess we'll find out at a later date. But you got to think maybe that could be the end, which is quite heartbreaking for him and for GWS. He's been an absolute star for this club for the last 12 or 13 years, however long it's been. 2012, I think it started, so pretty much 13 years. Yeah, but disappointing for him and for the Giants out of this one. Nothing more to be said about that. A look at some of the numbers in this one. This was Richmond's best performance of the year, I think, across the ground, outside of their finishing in front of goal, which has been quite poor all season. But, yeah, just their numbers were really good in this. End up just minus 15 in disposals, which is pretty good for them, especially against GWS, who are a very high disposal team. Plus 11 inside 50s in favour of Richmond. They went forward 11 more times than the Giants. That's a bad sign for the Giants, in my opinion. The free kick count in this one was ridiculous. GWS had just 4 free kicks for the game. And I think for the third quarter, there was 1 free kick for either team, which went the way of the Tigers. That is absurd. I loved it. The fact that the umpires had the whistles away. It was a great... Overall, I think it was pretty well umpired. But just 4 free kicks in a game of football is insane. Clearances, plus 13 for Richmond. What is this team? Nobody expected this from them this year. Plus 11 from centre clearances for Richmond is insane. They dominated contested football, as GWS tend to do. They dominated uncontested football. Those numbers would make you think that GWS would have won the turnover game, but they did not. In terms of just general turnover numbers, it was plus 4 for GWS. So Richmond won that area, which is crazy when you think they were having more contested, whereas GWS were having more uncontested football. You just look across the board and you wonder what happened to the Tigers here, because the numbers look really good for them. We get into like shots at goal, and it was 26 shots for Richmond, just 17 for GWS. 17 is woeful. Who knows what they were doing? Expected scores, pretty much every expected score is going to suggest that Richmond should have won this game by anywhere from 10 to 20 points based on shots, where the shots were, and they just didn't do it. They probably should have been 50 points up at 3/4 time, but they gave GWS a chance and they took it, so well done to Giants. Scoring from stoppages, as we said, Richmond did kind of control stoppages, especially centre bounce, and they did outscore GWS 33-28 from stoppage, so they did that reasonably well. Not outstanding, but pretty well. If they had a kick straight, they would have won that area by more. And turnover went the way, scoring-wise, of GWS, but not actual in terms of shots. Richmond just wasted opportunities again, and that's pretty much the long and short of this game and everything you need to know about this game. GWS were really bad. I don't know what's going on with them at the moment. They were really bad, but Richmond just wasted opportunities, and that allowed a team that has probably more experience and more talent, like at peak times of their career, I guess, to make use of that and take advantage, and ended up winning. So, I mean, that's the long and the short of this game, I think. We look at MVP votes. Winning team, GWS. 10 to Lachie Whitfield. He was really good. Tom Green, 8. Lachie Ash is having an outstanding season. He gets 6. Jack Buckley, 4. And 2 to Callum Brown. For the Tigers, it went 5 for Prestia, 4 for Nan Curvis, 3 for Tim Taranto, 2 for Jacob Hopper. Sam Banks gets the 1. Taranto's first half was outstanding. He went a little bit quiet in the second half, but he was still very good in this game. 23 touches, couple goals. Brownlow votes could go any number of ways. I've gone Prestia 3, Tom Green 2, Jacob Hopper 1. As I said, Taranto could be in there. I feel like Richmond, long and the short of the story. They just let themselves down here. Looking ahead to this weekend's action, the Tigers are hosting Sydney at the MCG. If you think back a little bit over 12 months ago, Richmond did beat the Swans at the MCG last year. Sydney are in some terrible form, which we're about to get to. Is that winnable? Maybe. Sydney are looking like starting favourites, but maybe, just maybe, it could be Richmond's day. For the Giants, they get a home game down in Manuka Oval. They're playing Port Adelaide, who, coming off the bye, have not had a great season. It's a must-win game for GWS. They can't afford to drop this game against Port Adelaide. It's one that Port Adelaide could well and truly win. But it's a very important game for GWS. I'm not saying that they won't make finals if they lose, but all of a sudden they're drifting towards falling out of the top 8. At this point of the season is not where they want to be. At the moment, if you look at the ladder, you'd think the top 9 teams are going to be the 9 are fighting for the top 8 spots. So at the moment, it's looking like maybe one of those top 9 will miss finals. At the moment, you almost think that could well and truly be GWS based on just how poorly they've been over the last couple games. Fremantle a few weeks ago, and now this one as well against Richmond. Their last couple home games have been atrocious. Their best is still very, very good. But do we get that often enough? Perhaps not. Moving on to the next game. It was Saturday Night Football. It was the only Saturday Night Football. What a stinker. What an absolute stinker this was. Sydney kicked just 5 goals, 11-41. Adelaide turn it on, 21-5, 131. What a performance by the Crows. What is going on with the Swans? Swans kicked the first goal and then didn't kick another one in the first half. Adelaide kicked the next 12. 12 goals in a row they kicked. Did the Crows in this one. And by then it was run and done. Sydney looked just awful. They lacked discipline in my eyes. They lacked composure. They just are a far sight worse than they were this time last year. I know they had some bad games last year, like there was obviously the Port Adelaide game last year, but this was next level. This was atrocious. They just weren't in it at any point. Pretty much sums it up, I think. Look at the stats. 70 inside 50s for Adelaide. That is a huge number. Plus 25 in that area. But 70 inside 50s Sydney conceded. That's crazy. Adelaide just controlled this match. Only plus 26 in disposals, but it was just a territory battle. Sydney had more clearances than Adelaide, but didn't manage to put the ball into their forward 50. Which is crazy. Contested football actually went the way of the Swans, which is a little bit surprising. But the number here that stands out as well is the turnovers. 80 turnovers for Sydney. They average a pretty high number in the AFL, 69 basically. And they had 80 in this one. Adelaide, who also have quite a lot of turnovers most weeks, had 69, which is slightly above their average and certainly above the AFL average. But nothing. That's a long way lower than Sydney's 80. So that basically sums up all you need to know about this game, other than the fact that Adelaide look really good. Their forward line, as we've been saying all year long, is absolutely outstanding. Like, they've got very few weaknesses in their attacking game. Their whole season's going to depend on their defence. If they can turn their defence into an absolute weapon, which obviously it worked really well here against Sydney, but if they can do that against some top teams, watch out, because they are flying. Their offense is hard to stop. What else do we need to say about this game? Check out the goal assist of the year. That was an absolute ripper. Ben Keys just smoking it. Getting the follow-up, sorry. It was done by Rochelle. In the end, 30 to 20 shots suggests that maybe it could have been a little bit closer than it was, but Adelaide kicked really straight and Sydney didn't. But, I mean, they still had extra 10 shots in this match, so they clearly were the better team. Sydney just didn't have much else. Scoring from turnover, so Adelaide got 88 from their 80 intercepts, which is outstanding. They've scored heavily from turnover multiple times this year. They did it against Essendon. They did it against someone else really early in the season. They were cracking the 100 in turnover points. They didn't quite get there this one, but 88 to just 22 from Sydney. Scoring from stoppage, as we said, Sydney did well in stoppage numbers, didn't score well from stoppage. 2 goals, 7, whereas Adelaide was 7-1. Defensive half, Adelaide scored 37 points from the defensive half, really solid numbers, and also scored 76 from the forward half. It was just complete domination from Adelaide. They also got 3 goals from the centre bounce to Sydney 0. That's basically the long and the short of this game. Just domination one way. A look towards next week. Adelaide, as we have already mentioned, they have Brisbane at the Adelaide Oval. Big game for them. This is a huge one. If they can keep Brisbane under like 60, 70 points and score 100-ish for themselves, that would be huge. Obviously, they did get knocked off a few weeks back now. Round 5 or 6 against Geelong at Adelaide Oval, so that's probably the last time they had a really high-ranked team come and play them at the Adelaide Oval. So they won't be wanting a repeat of that, but they can silence a lot of people with a win here. Sydney, they have Richmond, as we said. Their season's probably done. I can't see them playing finals now. But do they even want to win this? I don't know, but it's a tough one to know. It's certainly not going to be the most watched game this weekend. That's Saturday afternoon at 1:20. Probably most people won't watch that game, let's be honest. Votes for this one, MVP wise, for the winning team, Mark Keane. I think he had I can't remember exactly how many now, but 15 or 16 intercepts in this game. He was outstanding. Ben Keys was good. He kicked 3 goals. Isaac Cumming played maybe his best game as a Crow. Brodie Smith was good. And Jordan Dawson continued his fine season with 2 votes. Sydney-wise, Brodie Grundy, he's probably in his best form as a Swan at the moment. He gets the 5. Clearly the best ruckman on the ground. McInerney gets 4. Matt Roberts 3. Isaac Heaney 2. Tom McCartan 1. But Sydney were bad. Brownlow votes 3 to Alex Neil-Bullen, 2 to Mark Keane, 1 to Ben Keys. To be honest, there's probably 12 Adelaide Crow players that could get Brownlow votes in this game. Picking the order will be very hard. There was 12 very, very good players that were all pretty even in my opinion. I don't have my numbers up here at the moment, but I think Adelaide had 13 of the top 15 players on the ground according to the All Aussie Rules player ratings. So that just tells you exactly where this game was at, I guess. And that's Adelaide were way better than Sydney. We only had 2 games on Sunday, so that's all that we've got left to look at. And the first one was Melbourne St Kilda. This was in Alice Springs. And the first thing that you'll notice if you're looking at the screen is Melbourne's kicking a goal. 7-21-63. Yes, you heard that right. 7 goals, 21-63. Plays St Kilda 14-7-91. St Kilda win it by 28 points. And boy, oh boy, did Melbourne shoot themselves in the foot. What is that, kicking a goal? I don't know what else you need to say about this game, in all honesty. Melbourne started okay for the first 5-10 minutes, but then St Kilda just turned it on. Melbourne missed an easy one at one point. I can't remember who it was. And then it was just one-way traffic for that first quarter, put them 24 points up for the Saints at quarter time. And from that point on, it kind of stayed around about that sort of mark. Every now and then, Melbourne kicked a couple in a row, but just all these misses. 6-9 they had at halftime, 7-13 at three-quarter time, and then kicked 0 goals 8 in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, St Kilda kicked straight, made use of their chances. The team ratings, if you're watching the screen, this video, you'll see that St Kilda have a massively higher team rating. They were clearly the better team. Don't take that away from them at all. They're around the ground. They were better. Their numbers look better. But this should have been close. Melbourne just wasted chances. Basically, long and short of it. St Kilda had plus 91 disposals, but Melbourne had plus 17 inside 50s. Make of that what you will. Were they great inside 50s? Were they not? Debatable. But St Kilda had a lot of the football. But Melbourne looked after the ground quite well. Clearances, pretty even. Nothing too special there. It was all uncontested football for St Kilda. Turnover game, pretty low numbers for both teams, which is maybe a good sign, maybe not. But 56 for St Kilda, 51 for Melbourne. The mark tally was too high for St Kilda. They had 140. Why is Melbourne letting them have that many? Probably had an effect on the game, just allowing St Kilda to control the football way too often. You'll look at best players shortly, and a lot of the big, good players in this game for St Kilda were backmen. And it's because they had so much of the football. A look at some of the other important stats from this one. Shots tally. St Kilda 22, Melbourne 27. And they lost by 28 points. 5 extra shots for a 28-point loss. Expected scores, Melbourne did have some tough shots, so it's not too dissimilar, but it should have been close. There's no doubt about it. Should have been within a kick either way, I think. Scoring-wise, 2 goals won from kick-in for St Kilda, so they did transition the ball pretty well throughout this game. I think the two factors, though, that stand out the most is turnovers. St Kilda 10 goals 3, so really accurate, really good from turnover. Melbourne 5 goals 14, not accurate, wasteful, and blame themselves. And then scoring from forward half, absolutely dominant from Melbourne. 4 goals 14, and St Kilda only managed 2 goals straight from forward half. That should have been the game right there. If that's even like 8 goals, 10, this game's in the books. But St Kilda scored really well from the defensive half, 10-7, 67. That's really high scoring from the defensive half. One of the best numbers from any team this year, right there, 67 points from the back half. So that is a good sign for St Kilda. I don't think they'd be able to do that against better opposition that didn't allow like so much slow-moving, uncontested football. But yeah, that's about the long and the short of this game, I think. Having a look at the votes for the winning team, St Kilda, 10 to Callum Wilkie. He was outstanding. Marcus Windhager played his best game of the year. He gets 8 votes for it. He was kind of playing a defensive role, but still had 28 touches, was really good. Jack Sinclair, 6. Wangani Malira continued his fine season with 4. Jack Steele, 2. And for the losing team, Stephen May was best. He gets 5. Max Gawn gets 4. Christian Petrarca was good at times, gets 3. Daniel Turner, 2. Judd McVie gets 1. Brownlow votes, once again, like a lot of these games this weekend, could go a lot of ways. I've gone 3 for Windhager, 2 for Wilkie, and 1 for Max Gawn. Wangani Malira, Sinclair, Steele, all could be in there. Stephen May could also get in there. I wouldn't put that past the umpires either. So all we got left on that game is to have a look at next week for both teams. First of all, the winning team, St Kilda, they head to the bye. So they've got the week off this week. A good little win to head into the bye. We're going to be talking all about St Kilda in their mid-season review coming out later this week. So check that out on the YouTube channel. But they'll be really happy with going into the bye. After the bye, they do have the Bulldogs first up, but then they've got a few tough ones coming out of the bye. I think they've got Bulldogs, then maybe Collingwood or something like that. But they've got a good run the last 5 or 6 weeks, where they'll start favourites in 5 out of the last 6, I think. So it's going to be an interesting finish to their season, I think. If they can get a couple wins, like against the Bulldogs and Collingwood, who knows what's possible. They've got a long way to come back, though. And Melbourne, they've obviously got King's birthday coming up this weekend. Monday afternoon against Collingwood. That will be tough. I won't put it against them. Put it like a chance. Every game this year, you can never be certain who's going to win games of football, but it's going to be a tough one for them. Moving on to the final game from round 12, and it was West Coast and it was Geelong. It was at Optus Stadium. It was a night game, a Sunday evening locally, so 5:20 local time, so 7:20 kickoff in the eastern states, and it was a tough one to stay up and watch, to be honest. It ended up being a much better game than probably we thought it would be, but I'm not a big fan of Sunday night football. We get another one this weekend, which I'm not so fussed with because obviously I live in a state that has a public holiday Monday. However, it's just going to be a weird one that, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, back to this game. 11-7-73 for the Eagles. 17-14, 116 for the Cats. They win it by 43, Geelong. But a lot of that damage was done really late in this game. 3-quarter time, it was just an 11-point margin, and the Eagles did kick the first of the last quarter to get within a kick. And then even at about the 17-minute mark, they kicked another goal, which got them back under 20 points and looked like maybe a slight sniff. But Jeremy Cameron, who had been well held all day, kicked the last 4 goals of the game for Geelong to do his Coleman medal no trouble, I guess, and just get Geelong over the line. He only had 1 goal up to that point, so to end up with 5 and extend his lead in the Coleman, huge for him, especially when Jesse Hogan kicked none. Max King only got 1, I think, so a really good weekend in the end for him, which didn't look like it was going to be the case up until the last 8 minutes of the game when he kicked 4 in that time. So good result for him. In terms of stats and stuff from this game, possession-wise, disposal-wise, West Coast pretty good, pretty close to even. They have a high handball game, the Eagles, which, I mean, it works for some teams. I don't know if that's the best strategy going forward for the Eagles, but we'll see what it entails. Inside 50s plus 16 for Geelong, so they certainly had a lot more of the ball in their forward 50. Clearance numbers, really good for West Coast, plus 2 overall, which was all stoppage clearances because Geelong actually dominated centre clearances. Turnover game, Geelong looked after the ball really well, just 54 turnovers for the match. They are one of the best teams at looking after the football in the competition. Meanwhile, West Coast weren't too bad, 63, which is right on their average. Other stats from this one, tackle count plus 20 in favour of Geelong. When they had slightly more of the ball is slightly concerning for West Coast, but it's not the end of the world. Anything else to look at from this game? Obviously, Geelong had a lot more shots, 34-20. Intercept marks, 19 for Geelong to just 9 for West Coast. So it wasn't just causing intercepts, it was marking them, which arguably can be the best way to get it because that's clean possession. Scoring from stoppage was pretty level. It was pretty level in a lot of areas, but it was the turnover game. As I said, Geelong looked after the ball, and when they turned it over, through those 19 intercept marks and the rest of their intercepts, they really converted 10-10-70. So they outscored West Coast by 36 in the turnover game. Forward half 55-44 in favour of Geelong, but the defensive half 46-22. So they controlled it. They controlled the match. Probably a bit closer than they were hoping or expecting, but they got the job done, and that's all they need to do in the end. 17-14, 116. So a pretty high score. In the end, MVP votes for Geelong, the winning team. Bailey Smith gets the 10. He's been outstanding this year. Graham Myers played probably his best game of the year, 8. Jeremy Cameron, thanks to kicking 4 goals in the last 5 minutes, gets 6. Connor O'Sullivan was great. He's been good this year. He gets 4. Max Holmes gets 2. For West Coast, Liam Baker 5. Tom Cole 4. Harry Edwards gets the 3. Oscar Allen kicked 4 goals, I think, in the end. 3 in the first half, gets 2. And Tim Kelly gets the 1. Brownlow, I think, clearly goes 3 votes to Bailey Smith. Not always effective with his disposal, but he did have 38 touches in this game, as well as a goal. Graham Myers was outstanding. I've given him the 2. He had 26 touches, 2 goals. Was really good. And Max Holmes gets 1. Does Cameron get any? Maybe. He did kick 5 goals too, so potentially, but that's how we've gone with it. Pretty conclusive a win in the end. Not their best performance, but did enough. So West Coast this week, they've got North Melbourne in an away game, but it is in WA at Hands Oval in Bunbury. Obviously, North Melbourne have sold 2 home games to the Western States teams, so West Coast and Fremantle. So this week and next week, North play away games, home games, in WA. So really good opportunity maybe for West Coast to get one here. North are going to be favourites going into it, but West Coast, I wouldn't write them off. They're starting to play a lot better football over the last 3 or 4 weeks, so not out of the realms of possibility. Geelong, they have Gold Coast at GMHBA Stadium. A must-win game for them. Maybe not must-win, but if they want genuine chance of top 4, they probably need to win this one. They're 5th on the ladder. Really good opportunity to jump into the top 4 and jump above Gold Coast with a win here. So that's all 7 games from the week. We'll quickly run through the ladder post round 12. Obviously, there are now, 6 teams that have played 1 game less than everyone else. Those being Gold Coast, Bulldogs, Essendon, Carlton, Port Adelaide and North Melbourne. But that will start to even out over the next few weeks. So top of the ladder, Collingwood, they sit 2 points clear of Brisbane. They're a game and a half ahead of 3rd place in Adelaide. And then Gold Coast, who obviously have played 1 less game. Geelong, have played an extra game than Gold Coast, but as I said, they beat Gold Coast this week. They will jump above them. Hawthorn, they've dropped 3 in a row now. They dropped down to 6th on the ladder. Things were looking rosy for them, but all of a sudden, maybe not so much. And a tough one coming up with the Bulldogs this week, so that will be an interesting game. GWS 7th. They have won 2 in a row, but they have not been outstanding performances, let's be honest. Fremantle 8th. They've won 3 in a row, so they're the reverse of Hawthorn, really starting to get their season going. Western Bulldogs sit 9th, coming off the bye. Essendon, 10th on the ladder. Their percentage is pretty poor, so it's going to be tough for them to get back into the finals race, but you just never know. St Kilda, 11th. A good win on the weekend. Melbourne dropped down to 12th. Their season hanging by a thread. Carlton, 13th. Sydney, 14th. I think their season might be done now. Port Adelaide, 15th. Richmond, 16th. North Melbourne, 17. And West Coast sit last on the AFL ladder after 12 rounds. The only things we've got left to look at is how my tips went on the weekend, and they went poorly. Brisbane, we got that one correct. If you're new here, my actual tipping ends up doing a lot better than my podcast tipping. So I do my tips on Wednesday for the podcast. That's what you're looking at here. And then sometimes I change them before the game. Hawthorn, I got wrong on the podcast. I did end up changing that one to Collingwood. So once again, I got one that one. Gold Coast, we got that one wrong. GWS we got right, but it was a lot closer than that. Adelaide we also got right. Melbourne we got wrong, and Geelong we got right. For 4 out of 7, as I was saying, I do change some of my tips, and it always tends to work out what I change from the podcast, because on my actual footy tipping, I'm on 74, so plus 6, so 6 times this year I've made a change, and it's worked well for me, so that's funny. Moving on to Brownlow Medal leaderboard. Jordan Dawson leads after 12 rounds, 18 votes. Didn't get any on the weekend. Bailey Smith moves into clear second with 16. Then we got three-way tie. Brayshaw, Sarong and Max Gawn on 14. Hugh McCluggage, Lockie Neal and Nick Dacos on 13. And then Isaac Rankin, Zach Merritt and Noah Anderson on 12. That's after 12 rounds. Obviously, some teams there haven't played as many games, but that's how it is. Moving on to the MVP leaderboard. Bailey Smith, outright leader, 70. Hugh McCluggage, 65.5, had a great game. Brayshaw, 63. Noah Anderson also onto 63. Max Gawn, 62. Tristan Cherry, 57.5. Still side bottom. Where has his form come from this year? 56. Matt Rao, 55. Nick Dacos, 54. Jack Sinclair, 54. Caleb Sarong, 53. Rose, 52. Dawson and Neal both on 51. And then Tom Green in 15th spot on 50 votes after round 12. That's pretty much everything for this episode of the podcast. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that follow button or subscribe button depending on where you are. Make sure you do go to YouTube though. Hit the subscribe button there as well. Hit the noti bell so you don't miss any videos, because there are a lot coming out over the next couple of weeks. Go check out all the socials, mainly TikTok, Instagram and X/Twitter. That's where most of my content goes. A lot of content goes up on Instagram and TikTok, so go check them out. I don't think you'll regret it. This has been the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. My name is Jay. This was episode 36 of the year, having a review of round 12. I hope you enjoyed. I thank you for watching. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode of the podcast, having a look at everything round 13 coming up this weekend. Thanks again. Catch us on the next one.